A first-of-its-kind attempt to fight a wildfire at night ended in a crash this week. That doesn't mean Colorado's firefighters are giving up on the idea. The Department of Defense sends a team to Colorado as COVID hospitalizations overwhelm a hospital up north. A bipartisan plan to preserve some ugly history in this state, so we remember what happened to whole families.
They put us onto trucks. They didn't tell us where we were going. They didn't tell us how long we would be there.
And you sent us a tall stack of feedback on our double standard for a Colorado politician who specializes in being outrageous. I'd like to work with you to figure out how we can fairly cover cruelty and bigotry without giving it a megaphone. Let's talk about that next. Thor Olson would not have wanted nighttime aerial firefighting to die with him. The pilot who crashed Tuesday trying to do an airdrop on the fire in Estes Park desperately wanted to prove that Colorado's increasingly dangerous wildfires could be fought from the air in the dark. Wildfire experts told our Marshall Zellinger today they see Tuesday's crash as something to learn from, not a reason to scrap the idea.
When Co-Fire Aviation demonstrated its nighttime airdrops from a single-engine air tanker in May, Boulder County's fire management officer was there.
I went into that demonstration with doubts.
Seth McKinney was sold on what he saw.
The nighttime vision and some of the concerns I had, a lot of that stuff had come a long ways. You know, I was impressed and felt that there was a niche application here in Colorado.
He pointed to last year's Cal Wood fire in Boulder as an area where nighttime airdrops from an airplane could help protect homes.
The niche use that, I really saw was mostly down in towards the wildland-urban interface, areas along Boulder city limits and Lyons.
The fixed wing, you've got forward speed and that's it.
Vince Wellbaum heads up the aviation unit for the state's fire prevention division. The state uses nighttime helicopter drops, but had not agreed to nighttime airplane use.
Number one, we don't have the capacity for personnel to manage day and night operations. Number two is it's still cutting edge technology for the fixed wing side of things.
That's why this demonstration took place in May, to show off the technology.
We're actually looking into that as an option in the future. Unfortunately, with this incident, it's probably put us on a slow evaluation for the future.
The Larimer County Sheriff's Office said that Olson, the pilot on Tuesday, reported turbulent winds and was going to go back to the airport just before the crash. It will be investigated by the National Transportation Safety Board, which usually takes more than a year. Until then, it seems any future nighttime airdrops from airplanes are on hold.
What I always tell my firefighters coming up is some of our greatest successes will stem from our greatest failures. I certainly hope it's not the end.
Here at Chautauqua Park in Boulder, this is one of those urban interface areas where Seth McKinney was talking about, where you've got wildland coming into homes, and this is an area that he hopes perhaps one day could use that technology. Kyle, I reached out to Oregon and the Department of Forestry there. That is where Co-Fire Aviation also had a daytime contract and practiced at night. They had never done an actual drop at night with an air tanker, and because of this crash, any future nighttime drops in Oregon are now on hold.
Marshall, I'm so glad that you're exploring this issue of whether the concept is going to continue, because we know the pilot, Thor Olson, would have wanted that to happen, that there's both the concept of whether this can be done and then the execution of it. The people involved, are they making the best decisions, and do they learn from when something goes wrong?
And Seth McKinney, who was the doubter who had his mind changed after seeing the demonstration, said he agrees with the technology now, but he would never use it perhaps in a mountainous area or in a wind-driven fire, which they see a lot of in Boulder. But if you can do it in a calmer weather, that might be more appropriate.
Marshall Zellinger reporting. Thank you, Marshall. Pressure is building on the governor to bring back a statewide mask mandate, though we should say there is no indication the Democratic Governor Jared Polis is going to do it. Jeffco's Board of Health today implored the governor to take action due to the levels of hospitalizations and deaths in Jefferson County, Colorado's fourth largest. They're going to vote on a countywide indoor mask mandate, or at least discuss it, on Monday. Another day brings another record for the number of COVID hospitalizations in this state for the year. 9 new patients brings us to 1,535 in hospitals. There's a Department of Defense medical team that's being deployed to northern Colorado, where COVID has simply overwhelmed the staff at Poudre Valley Hospital in Fort Collins. The 20-person DoD team is expected to be there about a month. UC Health says its hospital system is currently caring for 373 COVID patients. 140 of them are in intensive care. Our test positivity rate statewide is still hovering near 10%. That is double what's considered safe. It looked like our 7-day average was going to drop, but it has ticked back up to 9.75% today. Booster shots are currently available to all adults in Colorado because the state has leapfrogged federal approval on that. Opening those floodgates appears to have left some older, higher-risk Coloradans scrambling to find appointments. We've heard from a number of you telling us you're having a hard time finding slots. Take Steve, 75 years old, 8 months since his initial vaccine. He told us the earliest appointment he can find is mid-December. We asked the state health department if it's doing anything to prioritize boosters for older and at-risk Coloradans. Essentially, no. The state suggests that people looking for boosters call the Colorado Vaccine Hotline. There's the number, 1-877-268-2926, CO-VAX-CO. Remember, Colorado's mobile vaccine clinics offer walk-ups, so that's a thing you can try. There's also a federal government text line that may help. You just text your zip code to the number 438829. And there's always the website vaccinefinder.org. We showed you that earlier this year. It maps vaccine providers statewide. So our vaccination totals are climbing again after a long stall, and that's mainly because shots are now open to younger kids. We're about 3,000 people away from hitting the 4 million Coloradans vaccinated mark. That's at least one dose of the vaccine. That would be 68% of our state. The 3 deputies involved in Colorado's first ever failure to intervene case are going to walk. Deputy Andrew McCormick was found not guilty of assault in court this morning. He's the one who hit inmate Michael Cassidy while he was being held down by 3 other deputies. We're about to show you video of that incident. We have the video because it was introduced as evidence in the court case. So while he's in his cell, the inmate, Cassidy, moves his handcuffed hands from behind him to in front of his body. They see that as a threat. Deputies rush in and wrestle him to the ground. Then a 4th deputy, guy in the black shirt, McCormick, comes in. You'll see him punch the inmate. It appears that he's being punched in his head or shoulders. McCormick's attorneys, the officer's attorney, said that's textbook. That's justifiable use of force. And a jury apparently agreed. That not guilty verdict today had a chain reaction. Prosecutors decided to drop the assault and the failure to intervene charges against the 2 other deputies, Chad Krause and Michael Montgomery. So the new state law says that officers who see illegal use of force are supposed to intervene or report it. Prosecutors say since the deputy throwing the punches was cleared by a jury, chances are the other 2 would get off as well.
And if in fact that wasn't a crime, then the other 2 deputies who we charged with failure to intervene, we don't have a reasonable likelihood of convicting them on that. A future jury will then hear that this other conduct was essentially deemed appropriate. Then we don't have a basis to continue to prosecute these other 2 deputies.
We should note something that the jury was not allowed to hear, that Adams County commissioners have already paid the inmate Cassidy a $300,000 civil settlement as a result of what happened. We are getting some feedback on last night's commentary that we hold Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert to a lower standard than other elected officials. We in the media will hold a politician accountable if they say something vile one time, but if a politician says cruel, false, and bigoted things nearly every day, we don't hold them accountable each time. We have received an overwhelming amount of feedback since we said that last night. Michael J. George wrote in to suggest that I should be executed, warning of consequences and saying you will be held accountable. Peter Sagal of National Public Radio responded to the commentary saying, this is true and needed saying, but the solution isn't obvious. Should they cover every one of her stunts, outbursts, etc. as if they were important news? Sagal continued, should they ignore them completely? Arguments for both. And that's the thing. For journalists, this is tricky because we want voters to know what their elected officials say and do. But we don't want to constantly amplify attention-seeking cruelty or lies or bigotry. So I'd welcome your suggestions on how we can do this fairly and effectively. Email next@9news.com if you have thoughts or suggestions. I promise you I read every single one of those emails. At this point, the first step for us is publicly acknowledging that there is a double standard that benefits politicians who are willing to abandon human decency. And we're also going to start making very clear when we do cover that kind of behavior that those are not isolated incidents from those elected officials. And I look forward to talking with you about your ideas.
And we were there from 1942 to September 1945, 3 years.
Fellow Coloradans, neighbors, taken from their homes, put in trucks, driven to a remote place. A bill in Congress would preserve Amache, so future generations will know what past generations did to our neighbors. Next. They were Coloradans taken from their homes with only what they could carry, suspected of being spies and traitors for nothing more than their heritage, skin color. Japanese-American families taken to Amache during World War II, that remote spot out east that became the 10th largest town in Colorado as a result, more densely packed with people than New York City. A bill headed through Congress right now would add Amache to the national park system. It would preserve and protect history we hope not to repeat. Noel Brennan talked to one man who absolutely remembers.
Before history fills any book, someone lives it.
I look a little unsteady on my feet. I'm 91.
Bob Fuchigami fills binders full of stories. Stories he remembers as a 12-year-old kid,
My name.
forced from his family's home in California at the start of World War II
We had a family of 10.
because of his Japanese ancestry.
They put us onto trucks. They didn't tell us where we were going. They didn't tell us how long we would be there.
There was 1 square mile in southeastern Colorado,
Amache.
where 7,500 innocent people were imprisoned at Amache.
The reaction was fear. We were scapegoats. They didn't even call us citizens. They called us non-aliens. I'll never forget what they did to us.
Bob can't forget, and he doesn't want his country to either.
Finally, we have a bill.
Bob testified in support of a new bill that cleared the House and passed through a Senate committee Thursday.
The Amache National Historic Site Act would add this incredibly important site in Colorado to the national park system as its newest asset and would ensure that the site is protected for generations to come.
Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse hopes federal support would lead more to visit the site,
These were the type of barracks we lived in.
so everyone remembers the story Bob has told for 79 years.
It never should have happened, but it did.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
Bob Fuchigami is also a Navy veteran, served in Korea, so he need not prove 1 ounce of his patriotism. All 4 of his older brothers also served. These days, he lives with his daughter in Evergreen. A note on this. In the past, you have heard us and others use the word camp before Amache. We've been told by some of those who were forced to live there that they think the place should be known simply as Amache. That seems fair. School Board Director Tay Anderson's been cleared of allegations he sexually assaulted dozens of girls. No sign of actual victims. But his quest to clear his name is going to keep this story alive. He explains why he's doing it. We already have our first ballot issue of 2022. You'll be voting on a tax cut. We'll look at who benefits most. And did someone order an elk? It's the most Colorado thing we saw today. Next. Denver School Board Director Tay Anderson is speaking publicly today about his choice to sue the people who made anonymous secondhand allegations of sexual assault against him. He told us today that he knows his lawsuit will prolong the focus on his past, including some mistakes that he's admitted, things that were not a crime. Like, Anderson admitted that he was flirting online with somebody without knowing their age. He says that he stopped when he learned the person was 16 and that he self-reported that to investigators who were looking into the sexual assault allegations. So now Anderson is suing Mary Catherine Brooks Fleming, the former progressive ally who accused Anderson, without evidence, of assaulting dozens of young women.
And so I am ready to defend my name and ready to take it to court. And through the discovery process, I am confident that they will not find anything that will substantiate to the claims of sexual assault whatsoever. And I continue to
Anderson's also suing former colleagues from the group Black Lives Matter 5280. They made another secondhand anonymous allegation of sexual assault. Should note, Anderson, after a police investigation, school district outside investigation, was never charged with any crime.
Big, bright, beautiful moon rising over Denver. It'll be full tomorrow night. What a difference a day makes, even with the afternoon cloud cover. Temperatures out of the 30s, where we were yesterday, into the 50s today. The thing that we are worried about is the wind, which has brought in that warm air, but also creating red flag warning criteria over the Front Range foothills. So that's something we'll be monitoring overnight tonight. Other than the high clouds, which will actually help to keep overnight minimums up, we have a beautiful forecast tonight and again tomorrow with the warming trend that'll take us right into the weekend. Partly cloudy, 32 in downtown Denver. That's a little better than the 12 we saw at DIA this morning. Sunshine at 62 on Friday. A warm weekend. Isolated snow showers for the mountains on Saturday. Warm Monday, Tuesday, and a little snow on Wednesday, right before the Thanksgiving holiday.
I hope that you enjoyed 2 weeks free of election talk. It's over. On to 2022. Colorado now has its first approved ballot issue. It's a proposal to reduce the state income tax from 4.55% to 4.4%. Marshall Zellinger can explain anything. So here's how he broke it down for us. If you make $20,000 a year, this would save you $30. $45,000 in salary, it would save you $67.50. If you make $77,000 a year, you'd save $108. If you're making $100,000, you'll save $150. Make bigger bucks, save bigger bucks. The largest benefit goes to Coloradans with the highest incomes, those who pay the most in taxes. The ballot issue is the work of Republican State Senator Jerry Sonnenberg, along with John Caldera, the libertarian activist. The most Colorado thing we saw today is proof that you don't need a thumb to ring a doorbell. You can use an antler. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a very courteous elk. Leslie and some of her girlfriends were up at her mom's place in Estes Park over the weekend. They heard the doorbell ring. They checked the ring camera and saw that it was an enormous bull elk. You saw him ring the doorbell right there. If you know what bull elk are looking to do this time of year, then you know exactly why those ladies did not open the door for him. Send us the most Colorado things you see. Pictures and emails can come to next@9news.com. You can always use the hashtag HeyNext on Twitter. He still thinks he's getting in. He's going to eat the pumpkin. He's going to wait. Wants to be part of ladies' night. That's what he wants. There are dozens, if not more, of your really thoughtful suggestions about how we should handle coverage of politicians who say cruel, false, and bigoted things in an attempt to get attention on the news and elsewhere. I want to take some time to read those and respond to each of them thoughtfully. But this from Lois caught my eye. Maybe a daily tally of the outrageous statements, like your daily report about the A-line a few years back. That's a thought. See you next time.